Hello there everybody. Now then, I do need to get a wriggle on with my Artiness life journey, don't I? It's been a couple of weeks since I last did one, so busy. But anyway, here we go. If you remember, we're now on to episode 10. If you remember, I'm at Manchester Polytechnic on the 3D design course, and last time I talked about the woodwork I did. Today we're going to go on to metalwork. And we're not talking industrial metalwork, we're talking silversmithing. So if I'm going to do a whistle stop whiz through of all the metalwork I did, because I did metalwork from year 1 into 2 and into 3. It became my secondary subject. So just to give you an idea of the sort of stuff that we did, the very first thing we made was this. Freshly polished, and it's basically a hollow little bowl, bit of sculpture, but it got us into working with metal and making things from sheet metal. So in other words, there's two pieces of metal here, both pieces were flat, but I learnt how to hammer the metal into shapes, and then we soldered these two pieces together to make this little bowl. Okay, and it's quite an intricate and it's a long process, because what you've got to do with the piece of metal is, first of all, you've got to make a little bowl out of it, and then you have what you call a last, which is a shape of metal, polished metal in a vise, and then you have a hammer. This is not the hammer I use, but it's a hammer with a shape like that, a cross peen hammer. And quite simply, with your piece of metal, you're literally raising the metal. It's a raising hammer. So you hammer it round, you move it round and round and round on this last, and eventually it goes from a flat piece, it curves upwards. Takes a long time of just constantly bam, 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 bam to raise it up. And the problem you have is when you keep hitting metal for a length of time, it sends it brittle. So what you've got to do is, once you've done a round of raising, you've then got to heat it up with a blowtorch, let it cool down, put it in acid to clean it, and then you do it again. The heating weakens, softens the metal, then you hit it and it hardens it. So you go bum 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 bum, and so you and I hammered these two shapes here. Once you've got the basic shape, you then move on to a planishing hammer, which is something like this one. Got a flat end there, and with the planishing hammer over the last, you're literally boom, going round and round and round, and the flat surface against the flat surface inside makes this smooth. Overlapping your hammer blows every single time. Like I say, you could literally spend days doing this. Literally, boom, 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 boom. But that was the result that I got. Quite enjoyed doing that. And you have to wire the things together before you solder it all together and then polish it up and stuff like that. So that was the first thing we did. It then moved on to this here. That was quite an intricate piece, because it's quite tricky not getting that to split at the end there. But that's based on a poppy head. And this bit is turned on a lathe, but then these two pieces, again, all done with the hammer raised up. Long process, but really interesting. Those two pieces were what I did in my first year session in the metalwork. Then moved on into the second year, and I started off designing some rings like that. Make note of that pattern on there, because you'll notice in my pottery that also appeared. So I did some lots of little studies there, where when you heat the metal up to make it soft again, it oxidizes and it makes it go dark. So I actually left the dark on in some of these and then scratched the pattern through after. And I made things like these rings. So you can can see them there, and they actually fit together like that. So you could have separate rings on separate fingers, whatever. I came up with something like that. But then I went back to me making me bowls, because I got really interested, and I've got a sketchbook here full of ideas and stuff like that, of stuff that we had to design and things like that. But eventually I came up with the idea of making these shapes with holes in them. And you know what inspired me? Biting into a crunchy bar inspired me with that, because when you bite into a crunchy bar and when you look at the inside, there's loads and loads of tiny little misshapen holes. So I thought, I wonder if we can do something along those lines, and I came up with this idea to make a bowl something like this. And can you see those little holes in there, and where the metal's actually folded over at the end? Well, originally this was a flat piece of metal with holes drilled through it, normal circular holes drilled through it, and when you start the hammer in, it stretches the holes, and you get this wonderful texture on the top edge here, where it's really been stretched to infinity. So I came up with that sort of idea there, which really interested me. And then I just soldered a little ring on the bottom there, so it makes something that you can stand it on the table. Did quite a few of those actually. Don't know where the others have gone. But that also led to jewellery. So we had things, I can show you here actually. I designed, oh, there we go. I came up with some ideas there to design jewellery like this, where you've got bars there with the holes drilled through, and then that was put through a press to come up with that sort of idea there. And then we've got bracelets there. So I draw all these beforehand, but quite simply, what I did here was I got 2 squares of metal, drilled the holes in, soldered them together, and then hammered them, and you get all these weird and wonderful shapes in there. And then quite simply with that, make a pin which will go through the holes. You've got a brooch, or a hat pin, something like that. There's another one. Made a little pin there with these little wobbles in. That's one there. That's made out of nickel silver, that one. I was too scared to use proper silver, it's too expensive. But that's made out of nickel silver. These ones are made out of brass and copper. You can see the slight difference in the colour. The more of a pink colour is the copper, the brass is on top. So we ended up with little brooches like that. All good fun. And then we come to the necklace that's just got twisted up. There we go. So all that there, we've then got that necklace there, which should go around there. Quite pleased with this. Even the little connecting, I made all of those. All those are separately handmade. And join them together. Really enjoyed doing that. But like I say, if you're going to make a living out of silversmithing, what you've got to be using is silver and gold. And it scared the life out of me, using expensive stuff like that. So that's why metalwork became my secondary subject. But at the end of my degree, you put a show on, and that was basically the showcase for the metalwork section, the secondary subject in the things that I studied. So I've still got some of these. God knows where. There's 3 extra bowls there. I haven't got a clue where they went. necklaces, earrings are quite nice as well actually. So that was the metalwork. That was a whistle-stop tour with the metalwork that I did. The main, sweating cobs here, flipping heck, roasting in it. The main subject that I did take on was ceramics, and the next episodes are going to be all about them. So we're up to date now. See you next time.